Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I know it's a little bit earlier than usually. I come on at 10, but I have some things to do today. What are we going to talk about this morning? My goodness. Uh, we're going to talk about moral politics and that course I was talking about last night. The reason I'm doing this course with you is to prepare you. Okay, so you can kind of understand a little bit about how politics works, what's involved, and prep you, if you will, for what John Pate, Potato, Trina, myself, Douglas, and Cynthia have going on. Douglas, where are you? I don't know where he is. Hopefully, you got my email. Okay, so let's start with this course. Okay.
The Moral Foundations of Politics is a course for people who are interested in making political arguments, analyzing political arguments, and getting better at thinking about real-life politics. This is an updated version of Professor Shapiro's 2010 Open Yale course, and while this serves as an introduction and assumes no prior knowledge of political philosophy, no content has been removed or watered down for Coursera. Each lecture is a dialogue between Professor Shapiro and two students, and will build a foundation for further study in political theory by presenting the philosophies of the greatest thinkers. This is not a course about the history of political thought. It is about practical political issues. Once you've taken this course, you will hear echoes of the different traditions it explores come out in everyday speech, in articles, and in debates, and you'll be able to see through political deception much more easily, make stronger arguments about politics, and judge the worth of the political arguments of others.
Morning, Buck. How are you? Good to see you. So why is this course important? It's important so you can see what's going on in the political arenas in your areas. So I think it's a very important course. And this is just to prep you. So when you see us talking, you'll be able to understand a little bit more about politics. I hate politics. I absolutely, I hate politics. But what I hate more is what it does to regular residents and citizens, and how they rip you off right in front of your face. And it's very good to see you too, Book. Okay, so here we go. Now, there's going to be a lot of reading with this course. However, you don't have to read everything. I'm just going to kind of skim through the reading and what to expect from this course. This is going to be week 1 that I kind of pushed into just one video. Alrighty, so I'll pause it there. And I found this interesting because he's going to go into Adolf Eichmann. Does anybody know who Adolf Eichmann is? A vicious Nazi who sent millions of people to their deaths during World War II. Terrible, terrible person. You're very welcome, Book. I know it's early, it's not my usual time, but I do have things to do today. Okay. It's also going to give you websites and ebooks to download. I'll download them and publish them as well. So, this is what it's divided into. Okay. Okay. This is about the instructor. His credentials. And of course, you can always pause it throughout the video when you're watching it later on. And like I said, here's all the readings. Okay. I've downloaded them, and we'll go through that too. Oh, did they really? Okay. Yeah, the Nazis were vicious. So I can't stand when they just flippantly say Gestapo and Nazis and they have no idea what they're talking about, right? So Professor Shapiro is going to be talking about a lot of things. Now, this course in specifically should be taking 48 hours. John Locke. Do we all know who John Locke is? Okay. John Locke was a philosopher. Okay. Very famous person. Marxism. I love learning, but I really hate politics. So I'm doing this for you. The social contract tradition. Okay. We'll get into it in more detail. Who these people are. Very famous people. Anti-Enlightenment politics. That sounds interesting. Not. Morals in the criminal law. Morals. I like the title of this course. Democracy. You're welcome.
What we're going to do today is...
You're so welcome. Because this is a sacrifice. I really can't stand politics. I don't like it. Okay, here we go.
Let's talk about the shape of the course, what makes it distinctive, and what it's reasonable to expect to take away at the end of these lectures. The course is organized around the Enlightenment tradition of political and moral philosophy, the reaction against the Enlightenment, and finally, the democratic tradition. The Enlightenment is a
Me too.
philosophical movement that began in the 17th century, really gained a head of steam in the 18th century, and fundamentally recast what people thought about every walk of life, not just politics, as we're going to be focusing on, but philosophy, art, literature, science, everything that shapes the intellectual universes within which we operate. The Enlightenment produced a backlash that we're going to call the anti-Enlightenment tradition, and we're going to spend some time looking at that as well. And then finally, we're going to look at the democratic tradition that has shaped most political and moral argument over the past 100 years or so. The Enlightenment tradition that we're going to start with really divides up into three sub-traditions that I'm going to be looking at under the headings of utilitarianism. This is the idea that society should be organized to maximize the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Marxism, this is the radical critique in some ways of Enlightenment thinking, though not as radical as people often suppose. And that's the tradition of thought organized around ending exploitation and domination in society and producing some kind of final human liberation. And the third Enlightenment tradition is the social contract tradition, which roots the legitimacy of government in the consent of the governed. The metaphor or the idea of an agreement at the core of government. So that's the sort of big picture of the intellectual traditions that are going to concern us. But let me say a little bit about how our particular discussion of them is going to be distinctive. For each tradition, we're going to do three different things. We're going to start with a classic statement. So for instance, I mentioned the utilitarian tradition, and we'll look at the classic statement of that tradition by the 18th century British thinker Jeremy Bentham. Then we will trace the subsequent evolution of that tradition down to the present. All of these traditions, in one form or another, continue to be living, vital traditions that have advocates, critics, defenders, people who engage with them in one form or another. And so we'll get some sense of how that tradition evolved and shapes contemporary conversations. But then thirdly, we're also going to look at applications. We're going to look at debates about such topics as inequality, the welfare state, affirmative action, and a host of related issues. Then we're going to see how these debates play out in the concrete policy disagreements in actual political conflicts. But there's another sense in which this course is distinctive, and we're going to look at each tradition through two lenses, if you like, which I call internal analysis and external analysis. What do you think I might mean when I say internal analysis?
Underlying logic of the argument?
Exactly right. So the notion of internal analysis is it a valid argument? Should I believe it? Where did the premises come from? Are they plausible premises? Is the reasoning from the premises to the conclusion sound reasoning? When people make empirical claims about how the world actually operates, are they good claims? Are they valid? Are they defensible? So as I say, internal analysis is about the validity of arguments, whether or not at the end of the day we should believe them. What do you think external analysis might be?
Maybe a comparison of these arguments to other arguments.
Yes, maybe a comparison of these arguments to other arguments. That's a little bit of what I have in mind, but really when I say external analysis, what I mean is ideology. All of these arguments, in addition to being philosophical arguments, have become rocks that people throw at one another in the political world. They are used to attack or defend particular institutional arrangements, particular ways of organizing politics, particular goals of political movements, whether conservative or revolutionary. And we're going to look at the ways in which these arguments operate in the world. So whereas when we're doing internal analysis, the question is, should I believe the argument? When we're doing external analysis, we're going to be asking, what practices in the world does this argument legitimate or delegitimate? And indeed, this concept of legitimacy is going to be a major theme in the course. What is it that makes governments legitimate? When should we obey the government? When are we entitled to disobey the government? Perhaps when are we even obliged sometimes to disobey the government? So it's the combination of looking at these traditions from a classic statement through their evolution into contemporary debates and applications on the one hand, and the lenses of both internal and external analysis on the other that make this course distinctive.
Okay. So of course, the hell is that? I don't have my glasses on. The three main traditions that will, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't have my glasses. Why didn't I wear my glasses? Anyways, enlightenment, anti-enlightenment, and democracy. Those are the three traditions, main traditions that is going to be discussed in this course. Good morning, Donna B. How are you? I am looking for Douglas. Poor Douglas. Okay. This is going to be boring. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. But this channel is about learning. And you cannot fight your local government if you don't know what government is, how politics are played, and what to look for in corruption in your local government and in federal government, right? You just can't. So it's going to be boring. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, but we have to learn in order to fight. Now, I pay for all these courses, and I'm not asking for a dime. This channel is not monetized. We are not asking for a dime. You don't see anything for money on this channel. We do it out of love, and we do it because we care about people. We don't need resources. We have our team. We have our wonderful family. And thank you all for all the new subscribers. I really appreciate it. We're just not into paying attention to whatever is going on outside of here. So it's important to get an introduction about how politics work, right? And so when John Pate comes on and explains things, we can understand it a little better. All right. And please subscribe. And thank you to all the new subscribers and my family. All right, here we go. I hate corruption too. It's horrible.
But let's talk a little bit about expectations. What are you expecting? What brought you here? What are you expecting to take away from this course?
In my experience, I worked in other areas of political science, but now I really want to focus on the theory and to understand how theory is connecting to the real world politics.
Okay, so you're interested in the relationship between political theories and what actually happens. That is certainly going to be a big part of our preoccupation. What brought you here?
I think I'd like to understand a bit more about why people have such stark ideological differences, and maybe more importantly, why they seem completely unable to reconcile them.
Okay, we're going to spend a good amount of time on political disagreement, how deep that disagreement runs, and whether and under what conditions political disagreements can be resolved, and more importantly, particularly in the last part of the course, what to do when they cannot be resolved. So I think some of your expectations at least will be met, but I should emphasize there are no silver bullets in this course, and that's something I'll come back to in a minute. A couple of other things though. First of all, no prior knowledge is presupposed in this course.
Thank goodness, because I have no knowledge of political philosophy.
We do everything from the ground up. Everything is explained from first principles, and the presumption is that anybody who participates in the classes and does the reading will be able to understand everything that we do. Related to that, I want to emphasize that there are no technical prerequisites in this course. There's no technical knowledge that you need to have. We will from time to time make use of charts and diagrams. For instance, this is a diagram that I will not explain today that deals with Jeremy Bentham's political philosophy. The reason I'm showing it to you is that there's a certain kind of person who, when you put a diagram up on a blackboard, as we used to do in the old days, or now on a slide, you put a diagram up like that, there's a certain kind of person, they get a sick feeling in their stomach, they start to feel nauseous, their eyes glaze over and their brains stop working. I can totally relate to such people because I happen to be one of them myself. And so what I want to say to you today, and the commitment I make to you, is that everything we do with a diagram, we will also do verbally. Diagrams at the end of the day are nothing more than a form of shorthand. For people for whom they are useful, they're a shortcut to getting usually an analytical point across very quickly. For people where they're not useful, they're just not useful. And so, as I say, my commitment is that we will never do something with a diagram that we don't also do without a diagram, and we don't also explain verbally from the ground up. I should say that political theorists and political philosophers are not famous for user-friendly, lucid terminology either. They sometimes one's tempted to say they never say in words of one syllable what can be said in words of 5 syllables. And again, it's part of my commitment here to dispel any lack of understanding that comes from jargon or abstruse philosophical terms that people don't understand.
Yeah, politicians, boy, they use some kind of language, don't they? And it's just hard to get your head wrapped around it. But this is going to be a really easy course, I think. I hope. I pray.
But rather to explain everything in common sense terminology when we do have complex terms, to show why they're used, what they mean, and not allow anybody to walk out of the room because some term was used that I didn't explain. And one thing I always say when I teach this course, and one thing you should both feel free to do, is if I do use a term that you don't understand, you should stop me and ask what it means, because if you don't understand it, probably there are people out there watching who don't understand it either. So no esoteric knowledge, no high barriers to entry that cannot be surmounted by anybody. Related to that, I want to say that there's no party line here. The idea is not to convince you of my political ideology or beliefs or convictions. In fact, what you're going to discover might surprise you. If I were to say to you, who is the most radical political thinker of the last generation, who would you naturally reach for?
Probably Marx.
Yeah.
Probably Marx. People tend to think of Marx as a very radical figure, communism as the most radical alternative to democratic institutions, and so on. One of the things you're going to learn here is that actually Marx is not particularly a radical thinker, that many people who you might think of as less radical than Marx in some ways are more radical than Marx. And indeed, I think I'll say something now that you might find quite strange, but I don't think you'll find strange by the end of the course, which is that where somebody stands on a left-right spectrum, from liberal to conservative, as we use those terms in America in the 21st century, where they stand on that continuum is probably going to be the least interesting thing about them. There are going to be many more interesting things about them, and which will reveal, for instance, Edmund Burke, who's often thought to be a conservative, as in many ways a much more radical thinker than any of the Enlightenment thinkers, including Karl Marx. But all that's for the future. The main point is we're not looking to come out of this to see whose party line to believe, least of all mine.
Good morning, Potato. Good to see you. We're prepping the people for political battle and fight against politics. You have to understand the system. I hate politics. I know you're always lurking. You lurker. I'm telling your wife.
But rather to understand our own political beliefs and convictions more thoroughly, see where they come from, see what they presuppose, and see where they lead us, and also to understand political beliefs and commitments that we don't agree with more thoroughly as well. And partly in the service of addressing your questions about what to do about political disagreement. No silver bullets. One reason there are no silver bullets is that even though we will be looking at the most important, the best, the most influential political arguments that have ever been developed in the West, none of them turns out to be without serious problems. That might seem strange to you, and you could say, well, then why do we bother studying them at all?
Yeah.
There are two reasons we do. One is has to do with the internal analysis, that even though as architectonic systems, as comprehensive theories, they all fail in one form or another or have serious deficiencies, they don't fail utterly. So each of the traditions we look at, nonetheless, despite its problems, has some enduring insights that it will be useful to you to hold on to as you go on your way after you leave here. So they're not utter disasters, if you like. They have some partial insights that are worth knowing about. But then secondly, having to do with external analysis, one of the reasons we study these ideas is that they are the most important in an ideological sense. They are the most important ideas that have shaped political thinking in the modern West.
And I almost forgot to do something this morning. And I can't do it because I don't have my driver in. Okay, pray on.
So why they've had this enormous power and why they've been so captivating to so many people is something worth understanding independently of whether they actually add up in the ways that their proponents think they do as philosophical arguments. This course...
Okay. I have to do that. I'm sorry for interrupting it. YouTube. Gotta do this stuff.
Does not promote or encourage any illegal activities. All contents provided by this channel is meant for educational purpose only.
And of course, fair use. Okay, I'm sorry, Professor Shapiro.
This is taught from a point of view, namely my point of view. Even though it's an introductory course, it does reflect my own philosophical commitments and to some extent my own philosophical agenda. That will become obvious as we go along, and particularly in the last part of the course. So one reasonable reaction to that any person might have is that is very arrogant on my part, that it reflects a kind of hubris. I mean, after all, here we are studying the greatest thinkers in the Western tradition over the last several hundred years, and I'm talking about my views as well. And you might say, where does this guy get off? Who does he think he is? And let me just tell you a little story to put that concern in context. When I was an undergraduate many years ago, I took lectures on Immanuel Kant's political philosophy from the great Kant scholar Stephan Kerner. And he opened his first lecture with the following statement. He said, "Kant was a great philosopher, and I am a minor philosopher, but with me you have the advantage that I'm alive." Yeah. And that's the spirit in which I talk about my own views some of the time in this course. It's partly and importantly to get you to see that these are very much live debates. All of the traditions we're talking about, as I said earlier, have contemporary proponents, detractors. They're very much in currency, in academic life and in public life. And the idea is not antiquarian. The idea is to give you a historical sense of where the doctrines come from, but also to engage you in contemporary debates about them. So it's not that I have illusions that I'm the next John Locke or something of that. I have no illusions of that, I can promise you. But rather to give you a sense that this is very much a living field that people are engaged in and developing, and that you should think about being engaged in and developing. What we're going to do next time is start with something that I call the Eichmann problem. Who was Adolf Eichmann?
He was a German colonel.
He was a lieutenant colonel, actually, but that's okay.
Okay, so he was in charge for shipping the Jewish people to concentration camps.
Yeah, that's right. He ran the rail networks that were responsible for shipping Jews across Germany during World War II. What do you know about him? What comes to mind?
Well, I know that, after the war, he was hunted down by the Allies, arrested and tried for crimes against humanity.
Well, actually, yeah, he was briefly captured by the Allies right after the war, but they didn't realize who they had, and he somehow managed to escape. And like many Nazis who had escaped at the end of the war, he wound up in Latin America, living under an assumed name, actually in Argentina, for many years. And in the late 1950s, Israel, Mossad, the Israeli Secret Service, began to track down a lot of these Nazis who had escaped the Nuremberg trials that had been held after World War II in Germany and were living all over Latin America under assumed names. And they figured out who he was and where he was living. And they went there and they kidnapped him, brought him back to Israel in 1960, and tried him and executed him for crimes against the Jewish people and crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity had been the term that had been used at the Nuremberg trials in the late 1940s. And what we're going to do is use the story of Adolf Eichmann and what happened to him as a way into the substance of the course. And what I want you to think about is two questions. One is, what things make you most uncomfortable about Eichmann's actions? What kind of person was he? What is it about him that makes you nervous? He is somebody that you will find as you read about him sort of gets under your skin. But then also, I want you to think about what two things make you most uncomfortable about the events surrounding his apprehension, trial, and execution. That he would.
Eichmann. I put a link in there for the Eichmann trial. And we're going to go over a little bit of Eichmann as well before I leave.
He was kidnapped, that he was brought to Israel. He was actually tried by laws that had not existed, by a regime that had not existed when he committed his crimes, and was executed. And think about the two things that make you most uncomfortable about that. And we'll start with those issues next time.
All right. I do not have my glasses on. Doggone it. What does that say? Oh, does this course require prior knowledge of political theory? And the answer is, of course, no. Well, I know how to do that now. Good morning, kids. Book John Locke. Okay. Let's go to John Locke. All right. Very famous person in history. Remove that. Yeah, the Mossad. I'm a big World War II buff. Oh no, kids. Oh God. I'm so sorry. You know our prayers are with you. I am so, so sorry. Damn it. I'm sorry, Kiz. All right, John Locke. Kiz, I am so sorry. John Locke was the father of liberalism. Liberalism. Did I say liberal? Yeah. Okay. He also had a lot to do with the brain, psychology, a whole lot that he did. Okay. So you can look him up as well. Kiz, I am so sorry. What a blow to the gut. I don't even know what to say, Kiz. But we are praying for you. All right, so let's watch a little bit about Eichmann, and this comes from War Documentary. Excellent channel. Okay. That's Eichmann. Oh, here we go.
Dann erstens wusste ich, der ist Deutscher, der weiß, um was es geht. Das kann nur Eichmann sein.
The year after his abduction by the Israeli Secret Service, the trial in Jerusalem. Before a Jewish court stood the man who had sent millions of Jews to their deaths.
Der Angeklagte verursachte in der Zeit von 1939 bis 1945 die Tötung von Millionen von Juden.
Also ich weiß nicht, ob ich besonders auf ihn geachtet hätte, wenn ich ihn im Autobus getroffen hätte. Trotzdem, manchmal, wenn ihm irgendetwas nicht gefallen hatte, da war ein Blick in den Augen, der einem wohl Angst einjagen konnte, ein Tigerblick.
Hätte man ihm
You're welcome, Kiz. You are family.
befohlen, alle Rothaarigen oder alle Leute vom Telefonbuch, der Name mit K beginnt, umzubringen, hätte er es gemacht.
Did he merely follow orders? He acted from conviction.
Das Größte, was er wollte von Hitler einmal empfangen werden und da sollte man so danken dafür, nicht? Das war sein Traum, nicht? Und er kam nie hin und das hat er nie verwunden, nicht?
Sie haben früher alle gelacht, diese Juden. Sie haben das für einen Spaß gehalten. Ja, sie lachen heute nicht mehr. Sie wissen, es ist ein blutiger Ernst geworden.
Ich bedauere und verurteile die von der damaligen deutschen Staatsführung angeordnete Vernichtungstätigkeit gegen die Juden.
Recordings now broadcast for the first time show another Eichmann talking with a fellow SS officer.
Von den 10,3 Millionen Juden. 10,3 Millionen Juden getötet. Und wenn befriedigt, ich würde sagen, gut, wir haben ein Feind, der Russe.
March the 15th, 1938. Hitler in Vienna, the new ruler of Austria, Eichmann's home.
Älteste Ostmark des deutschen Volkes soll von jetzt ab das jüngste Bollwerk der deutschen Nation und damit des deutschen Raums sein.
For the two.
Dad's family were kingmakers in Germany. Poland and Latvia. Oh, they lived on the Oder River. Blah, blah, river. Wow. Now that I didn't know.
200,000 Austrian Jews, Hitler's visitation was the darkest moment in their history. The Jewish quarter in Vienna. Here ruled
Angst. Angst vor dem, was kommt. Ganz einfach.
the evil hour. It started with graffiti. Incitement paved the way for activists.
Now, there's think about the rise of the Nazis, right? How did it start? Propaganda, mouthpieces, right? Spreading lies, spreading hatred, doing things against people. Does any of this sound familiar? And what's happening right now? See, I like to analyze things. You know, you've got hatred, vile statements coming out, gathering people to think with one mind against certain people. Look at what they did to Tiffany Henyard. Well, Tiffany helped. Don't get me wrong. But all of this social media promoting hatred, anger, all of this propaganda. The news does it too. They parrot the same things over and over and over again until your mind starts to think that way. And it's wrong. You have got to think for yourselves. You don't want to be part of something that you know deep inside is wrong. You know it's wrong. Yeah. It is, Donna B. It sure is. I'm sorry, Douglas. I had the wrong Douglas that I emailed to. I apologize. I know you're listening. Let's think about that. How did the Nazis come to power? Yeah. That's right. And now they just want what? Everybody to shut up, right? They persecute you. Not in the ways the Nazis did, of course. They don't go around unaliving people. But you might as well. You know, you target their businesses. You target their families. You target them personally. It's not the way to go. Goal achieved. Everybody shut up now.
The heralds of destruction were already in the country. Among Himmler's entourage was Untersturmführer Eichmann. Born in Germany, he grew up in Linz in Austria. He went to the same school as Hitler and was just as much a failure. He left without a leaving certificate. His father's business is still in operation.
No, I think you're missing the point in that book. Not Tiffany as Hitler. That's okay. I am too. I don't like texting. How did the Nazis as a whole convince millions and millions of Germans to go against Jewish people? How did they do it? And this has to do with what's happening in politics today. How'd they do it? They got millions and millions of people to think it was okay to slaughter millions of Jewish people. It just wasn't Jewish people. It was blacks. It was priests. Gay people. Everybody. They targeted everybody that went against them. Yeah. They targeted everybody that went against them. And what's happening today? What's happening today? Maybe not to this extreme, but it could. You know, when you dox people and falsely put out information on somebody, it could. Because people are crazy. They're nuts. They're nuts. I would never put out the address of an elected official. Everybody can look that up for themselves, but I would never put it on my channel. That's craziness. That's craziness. Yeah. Yeah. So how did the Nazi regime begin?
His first job, traveling salesman for an oil firm. The Depression came and he was sacked. Here was a man in his mid-20s looking for an occupation and a purpose in life. Marching in step with these troops, Eichmann was driven by a desire for recognition and a career in the SS. Total loyalty to a dark power.
Verhaftet durch unseren Eid, den Befehlen Folge zu leisten. Und das habe ich getan. Ich war immer ein ordentlicher SS-Führer, der gewillt war zu gehorchen.
Unconditional subordination was Eichmann's credo.
Treue bezieht sich auf Eid, auf Vorgesetzte, auf die Führung schlechtweg. So verstehe ich heute noch diese Bezeichnung, meine Ehre heißt Treue.
Loyalty also to the concept of the enemy, the Jews. This was the career opportunity for Eichmann in the SS. He studied the enemy keenly. A thorough smattering of knowledge. The Tsar of the Jews, he later called himself. Eichmann even wanted to learn Hebrew from a rabbi.
He did.
His request was refused. His teacher had to be an Aryan. He was, however, granted a paid trip to Palestine, the refuge of many of those persecuted by the Nazi terror. A flying visit to a kibbutz. Disguised as a journalist, Eichmann researched possibilities for deporting Jews, but the SS tourist's cover was blown. Eichmann was photographed by the British Secret Service and deported. His field trip was over. Eichmann's superiors rewarded his zeal with top marks. His commitment to National Socialism, unconditional. His knowledge of his field, very good. His special skills, negotiating, speaking, organizing.
Organizing. I put the link to this video in the chat. Actually, I want to show one more thing before we get the flock out of here. And it's important. And this is I'm going to tell you right now, this next video is very violent, tragic, all the above. So if you don't want to see it, click off now. Because this is what can happen when you don't conform to what someone else tells you to do. Maybe not to this extent, of course, but it happened. It absolutely happened. Look at those people. Those are all shoes. Look at that. So when you start spreading your rumors, when you start lying on people without proof to back it up, what are you doing? Are you any better than the Nazis? Maybe not to this extreme, but you're hurting people. You hurt people. This channel is to help people. We don't ask for a thing. We just want to help people, to educate people on how to stop this from happening. And this is sickening. This is a sickening video. It really is. But it happened. So when you lie, when you spread rumors, when you organize people to go against other people because they have an opinion that is different than their own, because you show people facts, truth, with videos that you cannot deny, this can happen. It's not a joke. You hurt people with your lies, with your rumors. Real people with real lives, with real families. Okay, great. Thank you, Potato. I appreciate it. Hey, Flint. Good to see you. But, stop inciting people with the bullshittery. Things can happen in real life. I will never shut up. I will never, ever stop fighting for people. And neither will my family. We're different than you. Very different. But when you put out addresses, phone numbers, spread lies, spread gossip. Sure, we joke around here. Of course we do. But we always have proof to back up what we're talking about. I'm going to put the link in the description for this one too. And then we're going to get the flock out of here. It's discussing what you're doing to people's lives. Elected officials are held accountable. They are different. Regular citizens are not. They did not take an oath. And that's who we fight for. The residents. Americans. And we're going to teach you if you want to learn. So, I'm going to end it with this. I hope you have a great day. But, you know, when you're on your channels, think about what you say. I do. But what I say, I can always back up with proof. So please, have a heart. You're very welcome. And I hope you have a great day. And I'm still trying to get an intro and outro for Coffee with Conscious. But have a great day. That was week 1. Moral political theories. And we'll see you on the next one. Okay.